Hello, friends. Welcome to the very first episode of our Infertility Series. This one is incredibly close to my heart, and I'm so damn proud to finally put it out into the world. This month is packed with raw, powerful conversations, expert insights, and deep connection. We're dropping new episodes every Wednesday and Friday throughout the month of April. Today, we're sharing the stories of 3 remarkable women, each one a warrior in her own right. Their journeys through infertility, loss, and motherhood are deeply moving. If you're tuning into this series, thank you. Your presence here matters. If infertility or child loss isn't something you've personally experienced, I hope these stories help you show up with more empathy, compassion, and understanding for those who have. And if you have walked this road, whether you're still in it, coming out the other side, or carrying the weight of it quietly, I see you. I hope this series reminds you to share your story, or simply to reach out to someone else who might need a reminder of their strength. So here's the ask. Please share these stories with your loved ones, with anyone who might need to hear these stories or better understand this journey. And if you're listening and feel moved, please take a moment to send love to the people in this series who have opened up their hearts and histories to help others feel less alone. It's not easy, but it's powerful beyond measure. And now, I bring you Gwenna, Cassie, and Megan. Ladies, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sharing the most fragile, sacred parts of yourselves. That is the true definition of strength, and it is certainly the true definition of a total badass. And until next time, keep moving, baby.
My name is Gwenna. I have 2 boys that were born via gestational carriers. One was my sister-in-law. One was my good friend, Emily. I did IVF like 6 times on myself, 2 more times for retrievals, and then we transferred into the surrogates, so 8 times. I did all the things that you can possibly think of, and it ended up working out because I didn't put a limit. We started trying as soon as we got married, and from that day until we got our second son, it was 12 years. I have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So ovulation was not something I was doing routinely. So it's extremely difficult to conceive when you're only ovulating maybe twice a year and you don't know when that ovulation is occurring. So once I did some of the medications, we were able to find out when I was ovulating, and that was all fine. But then it turned out to be unexplained fertility, which is pretty frustrating. I'd rather them just say, you won't have a baby. Like, that's not going to happen for you. But when you don't know why, you just have to keep pushing. So they were never able to determine why, because I make these beautiful embryos. They just would not implant in me. The journey impacted me the most, I think, in my marriage. Joe, my husband, and I think we became closer. I'm lucky enough that he's a mental health therapist, so he let me just grieve and do my thing, and he was just supportive. And I told him multiple times, you can leave. Like, I would be totally fine. That's really emotional. You can leave. It's fine. I won't think any different of you. And he's like, no, I'm not leaving. Because I think, truthfully, he could have imagined his life without kids, because he's a man. And I could not. It wasn't even an option in my mind to not have kids. So I think that it worked best for our marriage. And I know it's not always like that for everybody, but it was for me. Our marriage became stronger. But I think one of the darkest moments in infertility, I can think of 2. One happened all the time. When it was time for either a positive test or your period to start, you inspect your toilet paper all the time. So I would wipe and look for any signs that I would start my period. And that first sign of blood was absolute despair every time. It was worse than hearing the results on the phone, because you see a physical manifestation of you're not pregnant. Another dark time, I did get pregnant once, and I miscarried before 6 weeks. My pregnancy hormone level didn't do what it was supposed to do. So they were worried that it was an ectopic pregnancy. I being in the medical field, totally know what that means and what you need to do with an ectopic pregnancy. Me, in my mindset, when it happened to myself, I said, you can let it rupture because I did everything. I did everything for this baby. I want to be pregnant. So it can rupture. And my doctor at the time, Dr. Costa, said, Gwenna, you know that that's not compatible. Like, you can't do that. And I was like, no, it can rupture. And then you can either save me or I can just die. Like, it's fine. So I was to the point where she probably should have admitted me for a minute, but I was not okay. It was pure agony. So I think I would have just rather have not got pregnant. Specific pieces of advice I have for patients going through infertility. I would say be careful who you tell about your journey, because sometimes you don't want people asking a million questions. So you can tell everyone in the world, but just be prepared. Like, they're going to ask you a lot of questions. I initially had told my parents and my very best friends. And then, by year 5, I'm like, I got to start telling people. So everyone does it on their own time. Just, be careful is what I guess is my biggest piece of advice. Secondly, it's totally fine to not go to the baby showers. You don't have to go, because your mental health is more important, and it's so mental when you're going through infertility. One of my very best friends was having a baby during that time, and I was absolutely so happy for her. But you can't help but see your grief in that time. And I mean, we're talking, this girl has been my friend since I'm 5. And I told her, I'm like, I can't do it. And she totally understood, because she's my friend. And if they're not your friend, they won't understand. But if they're your friend, they will understand. So you don't have to go, and you don't need to feel guilty about it, which I'm trying to tell myself about, but I still feel guilty about. Always seek a second opinion. If you have one doctor who says, this isn't going to work for you, try another practice. I consulted with 4 or 5 different places. I ended up going with 3 different practices, and I don't regret it. What one doctor says can't happen, another doctor can make happen. So you should totally seek second opinions. And it also depends on what your issue is. Let's say you have a low AMH level and you're having trouble producing embryos. There are places, not in Columbus, but there are places that's their specialty. So you need to seek out those places. Don't just take the word of one doctor. People will say, well, just relax and have fun and just go get drunk. I can tell you, if that was the case, I would have been pregnant like multiple times. And it's not the case. So feel free to tell them to shut their face, because you should not have to deal with that. That is so annoying. Don't ever tell a fertility patient, oh, well, just go out and have fun and go on vacation. I can't do that. That does not work for me. It makes me so angry when people tell fertility patients that. It sends me next level. I can't even talk about it. I made a list. There was one more. Oh, okay. Reproductive endocrinologists are only as good as their lab. If their lab shows amazing results, it doesn't really matter too much about the doctor. I don't care if they're mean. I don't care if they're the fuzziest people in the world. Pay attention to their lab. Their lab is the most important. Never say never. Do you think when I got married, I would have said, oh, I'm going to go through 12 years of infertility, do 8 IVFs, all of the inseminations in the world, all the injections, and I'm going to have 2 other women carry my babies? Absolutely not. But here I am. And that's what happened, because I didn't close the door. But when it's something I wanted with every ounce of my being. So I was not remotely going to stop. And we were definitely to a point financially where, we got to stop. I didn't care. I'll lose my house. I'll live in a van down by the river. That's fine. I want my kids. And just never say never is probably the biggest. As far as our introduction into surrogacy, I was actually in the middle of doing an egg retrieval. And we were going to do it again because why not? Let's just run into that brick wall and just keep going. But I was at work and I get a phone call from my sister-in-law, which was odd because I'm like, why is she calling me at work? And she's like, hey, I want to carry a baby for you. And I was like, shut your face. Like, this is, no. She's like, no, I've already talked to my parents. I talked to my OBGYN and he said I'm a good candidate. She had a good pregnancy with my niece and she's like, I want to do it. And your brother says that's fine. Like, he doesn't care. And I was like, I had not even given it a thought. I was just thought it was me against everyone else. So that's what started the gestational carrier for us, was she reached out and said she wanted to do it. And I was like, well, don't tell me that and back out. Like, I will put a baby in you. It's what I said. And we transferred 2 in her, and my oldest held on and we got him. Now for the second, I have a brother and a sister myself. I cannot imagine life without my brother and sister. And I really wanted my son to have a sibling. I didn't care what it was. I wanted him to have a sibling other than our dogs. Like that, he needed a sibling. And I put a plea on Facebook to my friends. And I was like, if anyone has ever, Cullen was a 4 at the time. I was like, if anyone has ever considered carrying a baby for somebody and you think you're a good candidate, please reach out to me. Do not reach out to me and say, I would, but I can't because of this. Shut your face. You're not even on the radar. It's easy for you to say, oh yeah, I'll carry a baby for you, but I'll have a uterus. Well, shut up. Would you really do it? So I said, do not come at me and say that because I'm not at a good place. I'll punch you in the face. That's what I said on my text. Why would people say that? Like, people would say that. Or I would do it, but I had an ablation. Okay, you can't do it. You're not helpful. So don't even acknowledge it if you can't do it. Well, I don't know how much longer it was, maybe a month or 2. It's 11 o'clock at night. This is a core memory. I'm laying in bed with my son, putting him to sleep, and my phone rings. It's my friend Emily. And I'm like, something's wrong. It's 11 o'clock at night. Why is she calling me? I answer, and she's like, hey, I want to carry a baby for you. I'm like, have you been drinking? And she's like, actually, yes, but I really want to do it. Like, I've talked to my parents. Like, she did the things, and she has 3 daughters and had beautiful pregnancies. She's like, I actually like being pregnant. And I said, are you done having kids? She's like, yes, I want no more kids. And I was like, well, I'll put a baby in you, because I was actually in the process of doing a retrieval again. And because I told Joe, I was like, let's do a retrieval just in case something happens so that we have the embryos on deck, basically. And so February, a few months later, we transferred and got pregnant with Pax, and he's 9. So they literally fell into my lap. But I think I find much power in manifestation. So I don't know if that did anything or what, but I had 2 people step up to the plate and want to do it. I actually had a 3rd person step up, and Pax was probably 2. And we have spent well beyond, I quit counting at 150,000. Like, it's a lot of money. And she's like, I would like to carry a baby for you. And this girl, I would say she was 25 maybe. She had a daughter. Perfect candidate. But I said, you want to have more kids. I know you want to have more kids. And if something happened and I took that away from you, I would not be able to live with that. And so I turned her down because, can you imagine? Like, no. So I told her no. But I've had 3 people say they wanted to do it. So that's how surrogacy fell into my lap. I'm not saying I wouldn't have got there on my own necessarily, but we had looked at, like, Children's has this, they used to have this thing called the Adoption Academy where they kind of went over international and domestic adoption and what that means. And, they went through everything. So I think adoption was next on deck for us. I didn't even think of surrogacy because I didn't think that was something I could do. I'm not a rich Kardashian, like you say. Like how could I do that? Well, I did. And it was not near as intimidating as I thought it would be. There was a grieving process and there still is for me. I don't think I'll ever get over the fact that I won't feel a baby inside of me. That's a hard pill. Do you have tissues? Good Lord, Carrie. I am a sonographer. I do ultrasound. So for my first son, I got to scan him in utero, which was so weird because I was able to determine the gender from that scan. And I was like, oh my gosh. And Joe's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I see a penis. And I'm yelling in the room. And I thought everything looked abnormal because you lose rationale when it's your own kid. Everything was fine. He's fine. I mean, he's 14, so he's not super nice right now, but everything's fine. But I had to disconnect. Absolutely, I had to disconnect because as someone who does OBGYN sonography, I was seeing people pregnant every day. And I saw people who didn't see the value in it, and I saw people who didn't want it. But I also saw the other side of it, people who wanted their babies, and I had to see pregnant women every day. So I had to totally disconnect from our pregnancies because I saw them when I scanned Lorraine, my first surrogate. I was like, okay, there's the baby's abdomen. Here's like, I'm talking to her like this is her child. And I just couldn't connect because if I connect and something happens, I'm not able to cope with that. So when my oldest was born, he was born C-section, and I see him and he looks 100% like me. Like I could have spit him out. And I'm like, okay, that's mine. And I didn't feel that immediate bond that everyone's like, oh, you're going to just explode. No, there was no exploding. There was like, okay, crap, I got this kid. He's mine, and I'm taking him home. So about 2 months later, I'm in the ER, and a patient, this 80-year-old woman, I'm scanning her gallbladder. She goes, oh, honey, do you have kids? And I start sobbing, and I'm like, I have a son. Like I had no clue I had a son. So it took me probably 2 months before I bonded with him. With the second one, it was a little better because I had been there, done that. Emily, who's also a sonographer, my second gestational carrier, she would take a picture once in a while and send it to me. But I was still very disconnected on him as well. So I feel like it was hard to have much of a grieving process because I just kind of was like, that's outside. That's not in my life. And then I got them and I connected finally. And now I feel like I can connect in my job more. But that's the only way I could continue. But I think there's always going to be a grieving process because I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get over the fact that I couldn't do that. I mean, what's a woman supposed to do? That's what we're supposed to do. That's what you're told. Oh, you get married, you have kids. I got married, but I couldn't do the rest. And it's hard. But to have two women who did that for me. What do you get them for Christmas? Surrogacy is a big deal in my house. I feel that the sacrifice that Lorraine and Emily made needs to be celebrated. Like you don't just do that for people. And there are some people who do it, but that just doesn't happen every day. So my boys absolutely know. I'll tell Pax, where'd you grow? He's like, Emily's vagina, or he'll say Emily's uterus. And they do know where they came from. And they do know that my one son had to do a timeline of his life. And his first picture was him as a day 5 embryo, looking like a little Ritz cracker on his timeline. I was like, no one else is going to have a picture like that. And I think now he's probably embarrassed by it because, he's different. He thinks he's different. But it will always be celebrated in our house. When it's their birthday, every year, their birthday and Mother's Day, I text Lorraine and Emily and I say, thank you for today. And Emily's like, can you stop? Like, you don't need to keep doing this. I said, I'm doing it the rest of my natural life. So get over it. That's what's going to happen. But yeah, we every year. And I've had, Cullen tell Lorraine, my first surrogate, thanks for growing me. Thanks for growing me. Like, they deserve that celebration. So I don't ever want it. In my house, I didn't want it to ever be a secret because that's a huge thing to do for somebody. And there's not a lot of people in the world who can say they ever would do something like that. Like, I had to get life insurance on them when they were pregnant because you can die. And they knew this could happen, and they did it for me. Like, that is freaking huge. So yeah, it's celebrated in my house. For someone who's going through fertility now, and you're in the absolute darkness, there was a quote that I saw from Sheryl Crow, of all people, and it said, maybe not exactly, but it said, little souls will find their way to you, whether they're from your womb or not. And I firmly believe this. With my patients who are in the pit of darkness, I'll manifest it. I'll do whatever I need to do, but it will happen. You just don't give up. Whether it's from your biological baby or someone's caring for you or you're adopting, you will find your soul. They will come to you. You just have to keep fighting. And it's so hard to do and that's easy to say because it's not like money's, infinity. There are times where, you have to cap it, but just don't stop fighting because they will find you. And I 100% believe that.
And you might be totally fine through the whole thing. So just whatever it is, it is. Okay. I just appreciate you being here, and I hope you know that it's going to have a really big impact on someone.
I almost didn't reach out, and then I thought, if it were me, I was searching for this, and I didn't find it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, see. No, I know.
Okay, I feel a little weepy.
Yeah, so. That's what I'm saying. And let me get some tissue just in case because we had to.
Okay, that'd be great. I'm Cassie, and my husband and I were married for 4 years before we began a family. And we tried for 8 months before conceiving naturally. And we were blessed with my son, Graham. And following that, we had tried to get pregnant again and really struggled. So we had a miscarriage filled with years of infertility, essentially. So we had pursued IUI, and what I was frustrated with was I knew that I was a healthy individual, that I'd carried a baby to term and conceived naturally. And I couldn't find the root answer for why infertility was happening or why we struggled to even conceive. And so I became almost fixated on a journey to natural holistic health. I wanted to determine why I wasn't getting pregnant. What was the root cause? And it led me down a path of functional medicine and acupuncture. But we struggled for 4.5 years before we conceived my daughter, and then followed by another miscarriage. There were really 2 concise dark memories in my mind around our journey to conceive. And one was we were on a family vacation, and one of my sister-in-laws announced she was pregnant, and it should be joyous, and it was, but it was deeply painful for me, who was in the thick of trying to get pregnant. And I remember just going into the shower and crying and just wanting to be alone with my thoughts in that moment. And then another time I think about, I was raised from a family of women with stiff upper lips. You tackle the problem. And if you can't change it, you adjust your attitude. And what I had learned in this journey, it was very uncomfortable for my mom to sit in it with me. And so I leaned a lot on my sister. But my mom, although her advice was trying to be helpful and uplifting, there was a phone conversation. I know what street I was on. I know what house I was by. And I was in despair. Like, I wanted to expand our family. And the need that I had to do that and the urge, I felt she wasn't understanding. And instead of just sitting with me in that despair, she wanted to pull me along. And, it's a urge you have when somebody you love is hurting, to urge them on versus sitting on that bench of despair with me. And that's what I wanted from my mom and others during that time. The advice that I have for anybody going through this or wanting to support a friend is to acknowledge it. I mean, sometimes it felt like such an isolating event, and I wanted somebody to see what I was going through or ask or inquire. But there's a really respectful way to do that, and a time and a place, and a not time and a place to do that. And honestly, I think that women are way better at it than men are. And so an example is we had a loss, and even my brother-in-laws did not know how to acknowledge it. It's uncomfortable. You don't want to bring up somebody else's pain. But one of my friends, who his sister had gone through a lot of miscarriages, he just pulled me aside and said, I am so sorry. And coming from a man, it felt so healing that, it wasn't just my husband who I was able to hear that, those words from, but a male friend. It was so touching. And just to hear somebody acknowledge, how's your journey going? If you want to talk about it, great. If you don't, that's fine too, but I'm thinking of you. A random text, a check-in, a call, a conversation, you want to go on a walk, just being with that person and sitting with that is just so helpful. I think the most positive thing to come out of this is an empathetic understanding of a health journey that you can't diagnose. Wow, that's enough to just send you, sideways. Another thing is patience with my children now. So, kids were sick last week. It happens, disrupts schedules. They act up. It happens, they're children. But the deep gratitude that I have that they are here and I get to be their mom adds an additional layer of patience, I think, in my parenting that I can't take for granted. So the way it changed or altered the course of our relationship, meaning my husband and I, would be, we had moved away when we were married. And so we had just this really cocoon of time together. And we had a lot of challenges because we moved to different cities, but we had each other to depend on. And I think that really set the foundation for this journey because it was us two. And it wasn't always a happy cocoon, during the fertility journey, but it was this reliance that no matter what, we cherished each other beyond. And I am really lucky to have the husband I have. I mean, he is so supportive, but he's the oldest of 4 boys. So sometimes like the female dynamic gets lost in translation, and that's okay. It's pretty endearing actually. But he was raised in a big German Catholic family. His dad is one of 9 boys. He is the oldest of 4 boys. And I would go, as we were early dating in, 20s, I would listen to his extended family who were smart, talented women talk about their kids. So, I was looking for ideas or business opportunities, nursing degrees, or I thought, how interesting that they don't talk about themselves much. They talk about their kids and their families. And now I understand that as a mom, you know. But it was almost okay, you know, you married Cassie and now she can't produce kind of thing. What's wrong with me? Is something defective? Am I not woman enough? And those were the lies I told myself a lot. And to even hear them out loud, it's painful because I know that's not accurate. But it felt true at that time. You really have to advocate for yourself around the healthcare you want. I've had to advocate for myself on the miscarriages I want. You know, they're eager to do all sorts of interventions. And I'm like, my body is smart and intuitive. It knows, you know, whether it's fostering a pregnancy or in the miscarriage process. You know, you just really have to advocate for the way you massage that. They want to shove you towards IVF, at least in my case. They were just shoving. And I'm like, but I'm healthy. I carried a baby to term. Why are
we like pushing that?
Yeah. Should we not? Is there a root cause maybe? And I think it's still a great mystery, you know, left in the world. We know what the weather's going to be a week from today, but we don't know about fertility.
Isn't it?
Yes. I mean, it's like, on one thing, a really beautiful thing that not everything in my life is sorted out and it's still a mystery. But I mean, geez Louise.
My name's Megan. I have an almost 7-year-old daughter named Maren. And it was quite the journey to get to her. We were very blessed that when we first got married, Jay and I, we were totally shocked that we got pregnant right away. It was very much a shock, and quickly found out that that was not the case. We had our first loss at about 6.5, 7 weeks, and I thought, how could this even be possible? And went through one of the hardest times ever, and that was that miscarriage that I had alone at the house. No one ever prepares you for something like that, to experience it by yourself. And I don't even blame my husband because he didn't know how to help in that situation. So we got through everything with that. A couple months later, we were pregnant again. And same situation. Unfortunately, we lost that child as well to another miscarriage, but I at least had the power and the knowledge of what to do when that happened a little bit more. Had the resources and the people to support me a little bit better that time, but none of them are easy. It never gets easier. So at that point I said, okay, knowledge is power. I'm going to the experts to try and have them help me out here. And of course I was of geriatric age, which we all hate that word. But so we went and we got testing. Everything looked really good. And we decided that we were going to try an IUI. And lo and behold, we have our Miracle Maren. And she truly is a miracle because I love the story. The day that we went in for our IUI was my grandma's birthday, August 16th. And my grandma is just an incredible person. We just lost her about 1.5 years ago. But I have no doubt in my mind that that is one of the reasons that Maren is here today, because the day that happened was her birthday. So that just gave me peace along the journey. And it was a scary journey. I thought we lost her again at about 8-9 weeks. We had a huge scare, huge bleed. My mom rushed down from Canfield. It was traumatic. But there was that little heartbeat. And And then Maren's born, life's great. Let's do this again. So guess what? We get pregnant right away. We miscarry. And I'm just like, third time, this can't be happening. And it happened. And then I said, I'm done again. We're going back. So we did another round of IUI thinking it worked. It didn't work. And then so we were like, let's jump to the better alternative, the better chance, more testing. We ended up doing 2 rounds of IVF with one fertility clinic here in Columbus. We got millions of eggs, but nothing ever went to blast. We couldn't even transfer any of those embryos. And at that point, I was pretty deflated, pretty defeated. My age is creeping up. So then we decided to switch fertility clinics, went to another fertility clinic. He was extremely confident, thinking we can do this still. But again, we got all the way. We had one embryo that was not of great quality, and unfortunately it did not take. So I said, I'm done. That's it. I'm done. And then COVID happened, and lo and behold, we said, let's try one more time. We got pregnant. We thought, this is it. It was COVID. We're going to have another baby. And miscarriage number 4. So for me, 40 happened, and I was done with shots. I was done with DNCs. I was done. And Maren asks every day, all the time, why do I not have a brother or a sister? And it's really hard because she can't understand the journey yet. But we tried really hard to give her a brother or sister. We tried really hard. And every day when I look at her, I'm like, what would it be like to have another one of you? Or what would another one be like? You know, would you be different? Would you be the same? And it's hard. Fertility is just, it's really hard. But we're also blessed because every Mother's Day, I get to celebrate Mother's Day. And I think about that all the time, that I get to be called mom, and I get called it a lot every day, and it drives me crazy sometimes. But in those moments when I'm like, can you please not say mom one more time? I also know in the back of my head how blessed I am to be given that title, because it is the greatest title that I will ever be given.
So during COVID, was that just a natural pregnancy?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, dude.
And we had a heartbeat, like a little teeny, like they thought. We went in, they were like, yes. And then, yeah. And then I was like, IUD.
Yeah, no.
I'm done.
And there's a lot of power in that. I mean, it's
there was, and there was peace after like 6 months. There was so much peace in that because I knew and we talked about adoption, and we talked about all the things. My sister offered eggs because it was my eggs that ended up being something that was they thought was the problem, and my husband couldn't get past certain. And I get it. You have to be both on board. I've realized that too. Whatever you choose to go forward with or to stop with, you have to be on board. And I was ready. Like I was like, this is the closest we get. My daughter looks just like my sister's 4 children. She could be one of their children. But my husband would never have gotten past the fact that this is like my child with yours. He could not. And that's where it stops.
Okay.
And that is totally fine.
Yeah.
That is, and he is valid in his feelings and his thoughts.
And men, it takes them a little while. It takes them a while. Jay, Brady,
come on now.
all you fucking, sorry that you're the basic gender. We're sorry.
How did this journey with infertility impact my mental health? I mean, there's no doubt I went into some dark, deep times. And it affected my mental health, but more importantly, my relationship, because I was in such a dark place, but my husband was dealing with it in different ways and not to the same degree, because I'm coming out of a surgery yet again, or having another procedure done to try to have another child. And my body is just physically kind of rejecting all of this. So mentally, I mean, but I think the biggest thing with my mental health journey for me, because this is just the type of person I am, was to talk about it. I just am the person, I want to talk about it. I want other people I lean on other people in those situations. But I also think with this journey, I think the biggest thing too with anybody's mental situation is with anything, you have to deal with it the way you want to deal with it and the way you grieve and the way that you deal with it, because there's no shame if you don't want to talk about it. But that is just the way that I found peace for myself, was to get it out there, was to know that I was not alone in this situation, because, and so many people talk about it, but it can feel so incredibly lonely, and why me and why us? But there's a reason. There's a true reason why we have one amazing, crazy, almost 7-year-old and a dog that she calls her sister, because that's her sibling. So that's okay. During this whole infertility and loss that we went through, one of the core memories that I have is that very first miscarriage when the doctor, I don't understand why, looking back, basically asked me, how would you like to miscarry? Oh, I don't know. I, at a bar? I mean, like drinking? I don't know. Like, I mean, how would I like to miscarry? I don't. And I said, well, you're the expert. Can you tell me? I never had gone through this. And so she was like, well, I think it's best that you don't have surgery and that we just do this naturally. And so we do a pill and you will just miscarry naturally. So I said, okay, not understanding much. And at this time, didn't know. And I literally had a pill inserted. I went home. It was 2:00 in the afternoon. And she said, in a couple hours, you're going to start to feel a ton of pain and a ton of cramping. And then you're going to start to feel like you're basically giving birth with a miscarriage. And I guess I just didn't conceptualize what she was telling me at the time. And so I went home, and it was all that and then some. It was pure hell. I was on the bathroom floor because I was sweating so profusely. And my husband was at work because I don't think neither of us understood the power of what was about to happen. But I will never forget, and I still look at that bathroom floor and laying there and having to experience that by myself and asking myself, did it happen already? Is this as bad as it's going to get? And then it got worse. And I still, even when it got really bad, I'm like, is this it? I didn't even. And so I told myself from that point on that I would never do this alone like this again. I will have my people by me because I thought I was strong enough to do it by myself, and that I will never do it like this again. I will never do this at home by myself without the use of I will undergo some type of a surgery if this, God forbid, ever happens again, which unfortunately it did. So, yeah, that is my core horrible memory from all of this. Advice for people going through it. Again, it's everybody's own journey and but my advice is to start to talk about it and asking people if you trust them, if you know that you want their advice, because sometimes we ask people knowing we truly don't want their advice, but yet we ask it anyways. And then we're like, shit, why did I just ask for it? I really didn't. Or people just give their opinion, whether they're asked it or not. Mm-hmm. And I also think too, going through the journey, knowledge is power. And you ask the questions to these if you are going to a doctor, you deserve your time in that office. You deserve to ask any question. You take as much time as you need because you need to know all of the information. And if they're not going to give it to you, then go to someone who does, because that's not fair to you. Because yes, these doctors are dealing with this all the time, every day, day in and day out. This is just what they do all the time. They see people who are dealing with infertility, but your journey is your journey, and what you're going through in that moment, you deserve that time. What positive things have come out of this experience? I met one of my best friends because of it. We were actually connected through a friend from high school who went through fertility issues, who I knew as well. But we ended up bonding over the fact that we both just had one child. But we met at Crimson Cup on a random Tuesday night because we were both looking to nanny share. And lo and behold, she was literally experiencing and going through the exact same things I was going through, different as far as weight or the reasons of infertility. But we decided that we think this will work. We'll share our home with each other for the next 5.5 years. Our kids are best friends. They could never have another child. We could never have another child. And I think that's probably number one for me, is that we, in sharing as much as we did with each other, it got us through that time as well too, because they have each other and they're like siblings, and it's one of the biggest blessings in my life. If there were things that I could say that people asked me or to not say to people going through this journey, yes, number one, for sure, if I had to hear one more time, but you work out, you're in great shape, you'll get pregnant, you're not that old, it's okay. I was going to lose my mind, because in so many ways it has nothing to do with that. It drove me crazy all the time. And then the other one, now that we have one child, it was the question, and I used to say this to people too. You just kind of don't know what to say. But with one, it would be like, are you ready to have another one? And I'm really honest with those people. And I tell them flat out, I say, we have one miracle child, and she truly is a miracle. And I wish we could have been blessed with more, but we were not able to. How did this infertility journey have an impact on the relationship with my husband? I think the biggest thing for me, and I think a lot of women deal with, is that men are just never going to fully understand what we're going through. There's just no way. There's just no way. And so, he was there to give me a shot, or he was, there to maybe hold my hand or something. But the beauty of carrying a child, a man will never get to experience either. But the true sorrow of the loss of a child that you have carried, or you have done all these things to your body to try to have a child, they will just never experience. And to no fault of their, they can't help that, but it definitely put a strain, because those feelings just, it just won't ever, they'll never be able to fathom it because of that.
Mic drop. You're right.
Set. Go. Get my hand. Come on.
My name is Cassie, and I am 1 in 6.
My name is Megan, and I am 1 in 6.
My name is Gwenna, and I'm 1 in 6.
You are a warrior.
You're a badass.
And you are not alone.